Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
About 1.4 million federal employees missed their first full paychecks last week. The financial hit has led one major federal union to say enough is enough. But the missing paychecks are just one of the several converging challenges feds are facing right now. Here with more is Federal News Network's Drew Friedman, who is writing about all this in this week's edition of the Federal Report. Hey, Drew.
Hey, Jared.
So the organization we are talking about, of course, is the American Federation of Government Employees, taking a stronger stand now on the shutdown. Tell us a bit more about what they're saying.
So they're essentially urging an immediate end to the government shutdown. That's not necessarily surprising in itself, but what they are saying is that they're calling for a clean continuing resolution. They say really that Congress should be focused on passing a clean CR first, working on other negotiations once the government is back up and running. They're asking for lawmakers to just put aside partisan politics and saying that, at the end of the day, this is really just having an impact on, like you said, more than 1 million federal employees who just went without a paycheck at the end of last week. The union talked about how many of these employees are really feeling this in their wallets. Some are standing in line for food banks. Some are having trouble paying or affording other bills that they're, not getting a paycheck to try to cover. So there's just a lot of financial pain that's building for federal employees right now. The union is saying that it's well past time to just get an end to this government shutdown.
And based on your past experience, you cover these issues closely. I'm not going to go as far as to say this is a surprising statement from AFGE necessarily, but talk us through how it's different than we might have expected in some other circumstances from a large federal employee union.
When you compare what they're saying now versus the stances that they've taken for the better part of this year, it is a little bit different. It's notable mostly because AFGE has been, for the better part of the year, very much opposed to the Trump administration's actions against the federal civil service and Republicans' stance and their rhetoric around federal employees. But now, urging the clean CR, the clean continuing resolution, that's essentially what Republicans are pushing for here as well. So it is an interesting turn of events, so to speak, for AFGE. At the same time, they're one of the major unions that is suing the Trump administration right now over the latest round of reductions in force. So that's not to say that they're, taking back any of those opposition points to the administration right now. But I think what this really boils down to is they're saying this is impacting their members, impacting federal employees. And at the end of the day, that's really what they are trying to advocate for here is the well-being of federal employees.
And yet there's no clear path at the moment to how this shutdown ends, which kind of brings the focus to what can be done to pay feds in certain situations with various workarounds in different situations. What's the latest there? Because that's a big moving target depending on which part of the government you're talking about.
There are some federal employees in certain categories who have been paid. We're coming up on the next paycheck or payday for military members this week. It's unclear whether or not that's going to come through on Wednesday or in the later half of the week. At the same time, there are lawmakers who are trying to work on legislation, at least on the Senate side, to essentially pass immediate pay for federal employees. There are some points of disagreement between Democrats and Republicans where, for example, Senator Ron Johnson, who introduced the Shutdown Fairness Act, was trying to pay only accepted employees. Democrats pushed back and they want furloughed employees to be included in that legislation as well. Ultimately, the battle there led to a failed vote just last week, but it's possible that could eventually lead to some sort of bipartisan agreement. Unclear when that would exactly be, but yes, for the meantime, certain federal employees are being paid due to the Trump administration trying to work around budgets. But for the most part, no, many of them missed paychecks just last week.
And what are the other sort of financial hardships beyond pay? I know you were planning on writing a little bit about that in the Federal Report this week.
That's right. So it's not just missing a paycheck that's the challenge for federal employees right now, but we're seeing a lot of different news pieces converging here. So, for example, just earlier this month, federal employees saw the announcement that they'd soon be paying more than 12% more towards their health premiums starting in January. That's another big insurance premium hike. Last year, there was 13.5%. So 2 years of double-digit percentage increases for health premiums is a really big deal for a lot of federal employees. And, unions like the National Treasury Employees Union are putting that into context as well with President Donald Trump's recommendation of a relatively small pay raise of 1% for next year. So those two, percentages aren't exactly lining up. And then, tied into that too is the cost of living adjustment as well, where, federal employees are going to see some difference in that depending on what retirement system they're in.
Okay, so tell us more about that COLA increase you just mentioned, Drew. I mean, in terms of what people can actually expect starting next January, because it's a little bit complicated.
That's right. So in general, people will be seeing a 2.8% cost of living adjustment, or COLA for short, coming in January 2026. But as many of our listeners who might be in the Federal Employees Retirement System, or FERS, will probably already know that they receive generally a diet COLA or a lower value COLA than the rest of Social Security beneficiaries. They'll be seeing just a 2% boost to their federal retirement annuities. And organizations like the National Active and Retired Federal Employees Association, or NARF for short, they talk a lot about how that over time, over many years, can just impact and compound and cost federal employees a lot more at the end of the day, even if it may just be a small percentage year to year. And they also, again, talked about that in comparison with the major premium increases federal employees are going to be facing next year, the small pay raise that federal employees are most likely going to be seeing as well. And then on top of it all, of course, missing paychecks during the government shutdown. So long story short, federal employees are going to be feeling pain points in a lot of different areas right now.
It's sort of reminiscent to me of things like locality pay, another area in which things have just not kept up the way they have supposed to in terms of what the math says the formula is supposed to be. And as you say, these things tend to compound over time. It's not just skipping 1 year of increase and then catching up the following year.
No, I think that's a really good point to make. I mean, if you look just at one single year, the difference in the COLA for 2026, for example, 2% versus 2.8%, that's not going to mean a lot in terms of dollar value. But if you look at that over the course of 10 years or 20 years, that's where organizations like NARF will say that, that's something that can mean thousands of dollars of difference for a federal employee. The same goes, like you said, for, a lot of different factors in this. Locality pay is one where maybe if there's a little bit chipped off every single year, that can mean a lot and compound over time for a lot of people.
All right. Federal News Network's Drew Friedman. Thanks a lot, Drew.
Thank you.
And you can read a lot more in the Federal Report at federalnewsnetwork.com.